Today I would like to introduce for you guys Shell in Xamarin. I'm I can okay, now I can switch sides. My name is Bohdan Benetskyi and I here because I love Xamarin.Forms, I love to drink a good beer, and I love to share my knowledge. So most of the GIFs and some memes today will be from the office. If you're interested in what's going on with it, you should go in to check and that TV serial. It's quite interesting and funny, especially if you are an office worker. So let's begin. And unfortunately, today we'll have a lot of text because Shell is probably the best described part of the Xamarin in the official Microsoft documentation. Really, as far as I check, a lot of other sites, it's not so well described as a shell. Probably you could just open the documentation and it will be like a 60-70% of my presentation because I can tell better that it is there. So Shell just reduces the complexity of mobile application development because it can provide a common navigation user experience, a beautiful visual hierarchy of your application with all your paths, rows, and pages. Also quite interesting because it has a URI-based navigation and an integrated search handler. And how we can develop our apps in Xamarin right now. We have a tabbed page. We have a burger menus in our apps. In Shell context, it calls a flyout. And Shell is just combining both of the ways to creating your mobile app. And together, it will look like something that we have some bottom tabs with some top tabs and the flyout menu with other options where we could navigate. Also, in my links, I attach two interesting challenges in more than 50 interesting showcases where you could just check how other people used a collection view side by side with a shell. Here are just the first three links, and they're still really awesome. On the left, you could see just using the tab bar with tabs. Here we have only flyout menu, and third example, just combine everything with the previous. And while I'm searching the interesting GIFs for previous screen with tabs and flyout, I saw something like that someone just take a flyout header and integrate inside it expander view. And it's so awesome. It was so surprising that someone just makes that. So Shell give you a lot of possibility customization in the app, make it special for you, according to your designs. You have a lot of possibility to modify probably each part of the UI within the shell. So how we can add shell to Xamarin.Forms app? Let's start from creating the new app. And it's obvious we have a special template, but it's still unavailable for Windows. Windows UVP application, we still have some problems within, but most of them are resolved, but it's still not so stable like for iOS or Android. So probably you don't create apps for UVP, but it's a good point to mention about that. Also, in the links in the end, you will find interesting article how to update existing Xamarin.Forms application to using Shell. Right now, I will show the most important parts of the application, but there are also a couple interesting points from an author, JSON, that you better for you to read it because it's quite interesting. So, first of all, we should add XAML file with a shell, just like a standard page, but the root of the page should be shell, like in code behind and in Xamarin, in XAML, sorry. Next, your step is just registering app shell, like your main page, that's giving shell for managing all roads in your app. And at first, I would like to tell you about shell tabs. And just interesting information that the tab bar in the shell tab disable flyouts. And while you are thinking and reminding yourself my previous example, where I combining tabs and the flyouts, I will tell you everything about that in the flyout menu. Right now, we're just focusing on a tab bar, and one more type tab bar disables a flyout. So hierarchy with a shell with one tab inside the mobile app will be the next. We have a tab bar, which is one of the main containers of shell subclasses, same as flyout menu or shell content. Yeah, you could just paste shell content like a root element in the shell, but it's not telling about that directly in the documentation. It's used in a couple of examples, but never describes that it can be in the same level. So just good to mention about that. Inside it, we could place a tab or a shell content. The difference I will tell you later. Tab is just a section that can contain only a shell content used inside a tab bar or flyout item. It means that tab bar and flyout both can have inside the tabs. And the third element is a shell content. It's just a wrapper of content page, but it has an icon and title as same as a tab. So when we should use a tabs and when we should a shell content. If you would like to have only the bottom tabs, you could use tab or shell content itself without wrapping a tab. It will be wrapped by shell engine inside. But if you would like to have the bottom tabs along with top tabs, you should wrap all shell contents inside the tabs. Tabs will be in the bottom like a bottom tabs, and shell content will be shown as top tabs. So, and your shell content can be simplified by a page. It's mean that in our first example, we can all simplify into just a view cards page, and it will be the same UI as we have here, because tab can be simplified with shell content itself can be simplified with a page. But probably will not doing that in your app because you will have more than one page. But in some cases, you could just skip a shell content as a wrapper. And interesting moment, we could style our tab bar and flyout item as well. But it's all good if you are using Visual Studio for Windows or a Rider. But with Visual Studio for Mac, you could have some problems by getting all that values with Intel Sense. I faced that problem. But it's all cool described in the official documentation. And one more interesting point, I will have some screenshots from original Microsoft documentation when I don't want to stay for a long time, because you could just later open my presentation and read more or just open official documentation. So for tab appearance, we could set a tab bar background color, tab bar disabled color, foreground, title, and unselected color. Also, we can modify a tab class itself. It has some like checked, enabled, tab stop, setting current item, which of type as shell content, and different flyout disable options. Also, shell content class itself has the icon and title about which I mentioned earlier. Is also a checked, enabled, visible, and interesting is menu items of type menu item collection that displays in the flyout menu if we use it there. Also, if you are interested, if we are able to implement something like that in Xamarin.Forms with a shell, unfortunately, it will be really hard. I attach in the links implementation of the design, but it's required a lot of custom renders within a shell. So for my own opinion, if you would like to something so custom in the bottom tabs, you still should go with your custom solutions instead of shell. You could do that, but it probably will be just the same pain if you're just starting it from scratch with your own solution. So just up to you. And later you could just check a link how we could implement it, unfortunately only in Android within a shell. And it's a moment to tell about efficient page loading. Earlier I was showing you that shell content inside have a pages. Here we set in the title, an icon from PNG, and a row. About rows we will tell later, much later in the end of the presentation. And inside it we have our page. But all that pages will be loading in the application startup. So don't do that. Do that. Use just a content template. It's telling shell that that page should be loading on demand, only when it's first time showing. And later it can be uploaded even from memory. So never do that, just all time use a content template. Shell Flyout. Flyout has three interesting sections, probably two, but okay. First, it's really important, is a header. As I earlier showed you, it could have everything inside you could imagine. Like example is expander view and more other stuff. Later, we have a flyout items and menu items. One moment, I just hide that window. And menu items. It's not have a huge difference between them, but more deeply I will tell you later when it will be slide about that. First of all, flyout behavior. We have three behaviors. First is disabled, means burger menu is invisible for user and can be opened, but it can be opened programmatically. Flyout is just a standard behavior, and locked is one interesting because it's flyout will be open all time and can be closed by the user, and it looks really wrong in the mobile application. It's important, but for tablets or mobile devices with a landscape orientation, it can be an interesting option, and it can easily be handled by on device or on orientation modifiers. So flyout header template. It's one of the simplest header template from Magic Gradients. And here you could see that flyout header template just accept a data template, and a data template is just a regular Xamarin application, can be everything. For example, here we have just a Magic Gradient with two labels on it. Also, what is good is that we could move it into styles. And also we can set it from a code behind, as probably as all modifications that we can done from XAML. But I don't attach that in my presentation, but all that is pretty nice described in the official documentation from the Microsoft. So flyout header behavior. It can be fixed, means just showing all time. It can be scrolls or can collapse on scroll. When it can appear when we have a lot of options for small, especially for small devices, and we would like to scroll them, we could interact with our header. It's really nice that most of that small options in a shell can be modified and can be, it's really flexible. It can just cover most of your application requirements, and it's really awesome part of a shell. Also, what is interesting is that we could set some flyout background image. We can do it pretty simple, as we can see here in the code. And this is how it may look in your app when about page is selected right now. I will not stop for long here, but it's a flyout item. And flyout item is really close for a tab bar, because most of your application will have a flyout item itself instead of a tab bar. But if you have a tab bar in the top of your shell content, later we'll show you in the demo, it will hide the flyout at all. But later you could navigate to flyout pages, and this has a complete flyout behavior as a normal app without a tab bar. Flyout backdrop. Backdrop is flyout which just change appearance of the flyout overlay at its opening. And we can attach flyout property for any shell element, but it will be only applied for a flyout item, shell, or a tab bar objects. It's good to mention that a lot of other elements that we have in the shell can allow in different um, bindable properties, but not all of them will be rendered later. Like, for example, with that flyout backdrop. Vertical scroll. It's going to be disabled, enabled, or automatically indicated according to flyout vertical scroll mode property. Nothing special here. Flyout display options. First of all, it's just a standard option named as a single item. And for that flyout item with just a title tabs and has two tabs inside with icons left and right, it will be shown in a flyout like a single element, single item. And as you may think, as multiple items will be shown just the tabs instead of flyout item in your flyout. Sorry for doubling that words, in your flyout menu. So if you would like to have just a flyout item itself, you could just use it. But if you want to show all tabs inside your flyout item, you can just add one flyout display option attribute instead of unwrapping each tab to different flyout items, which is really awesome option, according to me. So let's talk about appearance. One more cool stuff that we could modify shell item template for showing our items in a different way, just customizing their image and label as we want. We get in here only a flyout icon and a title from a bindable context for each element that we have in the flyout menu. So it's one more plus that we could provide some or better user experience with them according to our requirements. So fly out item tab bar order. One more interesting stuff, you can manage it without any changes if you just properly set it hierarchically in your shell page. I don't know how to call that shell XAML file where you define all your hierarchical of your Xamarin application. But also, if you don't want to modify that ordering itself, you could just set the special tab index according to rules that you see in the screen. Also, good to mention if there are any conflicts, they will be resolved by declaration order. That order is where you passed it in the XAML files. Set the current flyout item. For example, here we have a shell with a first flyout item with the title animals, and somewhere later we have some about page. According to design, first it should be shown the elements that declare the first. So some of the page with an animal should be shown. But if we specify a current item, it will be shown that item firstly, even if it's declared somewhere in the bottom of your shell. You could also set it in the shell class itself in the code behind, but what is good, same as a main page some application, you have a static shell current object where you could set a current item and see a lot of interesting options during debugging your application. And let's talk about menu items. As earlier I showed you, we have not only flyout items, but also a menu item inside the flyouts. And they some kind of your flyout items, but not special like a tabs. Why? Because it just has an clicked event and a command property. It's not opening the page like flyout item, but it can react to your clicks with opening some page or make something else, for example, uploading or other stuff. So you can just bind some commands to it and just interact with the user. That's a first difference between the flyout item and menu item itself. Also, what about styling? All styles that we can write for flyout item and menu items is pretty close to what you can write for tabs bar, and it also can be one a style for both set items can be applied. Means you could just write one style and apply for both set items. Also, we have some predefined styles like item label style, image style, and layout styles for both of them. Sorry. So, shell page configuration. First of all, we could set different page colors, such as background color, disabled foreground, or title. Also, we could set unselected color. All that of type colors, not a brush. So, how we may set it? We may set it from a shell or for each shell content. Set page presentation mode. It's quite interesting because also allowing for us showing in a different way different parts of our application. Here we have model animated, and other. And what is interesting is that we can combine them because it's a flags. Enumeration with a flag means you could just combine a couple of them. And here you have a described rules, how we can combine it and what it will be, how it will be shown. So enable navigation bar shadow. It's interesting option because by default for iOS it's setting to false and for Android for true. And if we set it just for true for both iOS and Android, it will be true now. Cool to have it. Nothing special. Same like disable navigation bar. You could just disable it and enable. I don't have a lot of words to say about that option. Tab bar. Also, we could interact with tab bar visibility for each page itself. And display views in the navigation bar. It's quite interesting option. Why? Because we could set everything inside our title view for each page. And it's quite unusual behavior for Xamarin, and it's really nice. Only one thing is really bad and make me sad that for Android, we have a difference between a navigation bar and a status bar. And for status bar, we can set only a colors, when for iOS, we could just fit our image in a status bar. It can be done, but not from a shell. We still should write some interface with implementation in Android, but it's not hard to do that. Page visibility. Quite interesting and strange option according to me, because you could have a page which is invisible and you can't navigate to that option. Quite strange, but maybe in some cases when we have some A/B testing and want to provide for some users with some special pages not available for other users, it can be an option, I think. And we come for a really interesting part is a shell navigation, probably the most interesting part within the all shell after the flyouts. And let's start with a couple interesting navigating properties like back button behavior, current item about which we really talking, current state of type shell navigation state, and current of type shell, just the same alias for main page as we saw it previously. It's how navigation looks. As I started my presentation and tell you that Shell has a URI-based navigation, it wasn't a joke. They really have like a prism, as far as I remember, just URLs for navigating inside your app. It has three parts of the navigation routing. First of all, it's a route. It just defines a path to content that exists, it's important, as a part of the shell visual hierarchy. Mean it should be defined in your shell file. Next is a page that don't exist in the shell visual hierarchy by itself, but you can navigate from anywhere within the shell application just by the name of that page. Mean we can register in the code behind of the shell class. And the last, really interesting, is a query parameters. That are parameters that can be passed in the destination page while you're navigating. And routes are set by a route attribute. Surprise, surprise. And inside your shell, it will be looks like that for your hierarchy. You have a shell with a flyout item, which has row animals. It's a top level navigation. Then you have a tab with domestic. Inside it, it has two shell contents with a cats and a dogs. Later, you, in the same level as a tab, just simplified that because we don't want to set some special route for it, couple shell contents, which has the same level as a domestic. In the end, in the root level, we have about. And important, an argument exception will be thrown in a runtime if you have a duplicate routes in your app, but the same routes in the different with a different rows in the beginning can be allowed. For example, if we have domestic cats and dogs, and for some reason inside the monkeys we also would like to define a cat, it's allowed because it's in the different absolute path. But for short paths, it will not be available or throw for us argument exception in runtime as well. But about that in the moment. As I mentioned earlier, just I can go, our page not exists in the shell here visual hierarchy, but it should be registered, and it can be registered from a code behind by a routing, register route, and routing unregistered route. It's pretty simple. Also, we could register it with a slash, which divides our routes and for example, as I told you previously, we could have a domestic cats. Here it will looks like a domestic slash cats in that parameters, dividing by slash. And absolute routes navigation. It's meaning that we search for animals routes and animals page inside it are animals routes, because if a route has only one page inside, it can be simplified. Okay, so here's the shell content object with route is animal. I'll tell you shell content is here and flyout item is here. Relative routes. Relative routes, if you have just a unique route, you could navigate especially for that page immediately. It's cool for our pages, which we just registering in the code behind, but also you could navigate for any elements inside your shell visual tree if you have a unique name. Also, runtime exception if you have a duplicates. And what's the difference between a double slash and triple slash? Double slash is just searching for your routes upwards from the current displayed route. And triple is just downwards from the current displayed route. I mean, if you here just up and it's bottom. For example, if we was and about page, in our example, I'd like to go for animal monkeys, double slash animals slash monkeys is the correct way to go there. Backward navigation is what I'm really happy because we can navigate a couple times from our page to the top, and I was really happy with that. It's something that it was pain for me with MVM cross when we need to navigate 2-3 pages above. We should pass in some arguments, closing the check-in, just double dot slash 2 pages above, and we're happy. I love it. Debugging. Both that items was shown previously when we're talking about a shell and the navigation in the beginning of that part of the presentation. Here, just good to mention that we have a special debugger display attribute, which allow us to showing it in more better way when we want it. For example, here we could just show location and their direct path for that. Tab class. Tab class defines a stack property of I read only. I will not read it at all because it's just a simple information where you could pop to root, remove, pop async. I will just leave it here. Later you could just read it if you want, because we have a lot of similar slides. Shell is really complex with that stuff. Just navigation events. It's good that we have it because we can know from where we come and may add additional interaction with it. For example, we can cancel or know it was canceled. Also, we have a source, target, and the current navigation stack. Oh, sorry, I have double slides. And shell navigated event arcs that comes here. We can have enumeration there, like unknown, push pop to root, shell item change, so shell section change. It cool because we can add some log events and later know how user use our apps with our hard navigation paths within it. For example, if we could come to our page from 3 different screens, it could be really nice to have some later statistic and check how users use our app, what is the best way for them to come to that page. And passing data with navigation. And it's once with I'm not really happy after MVM cross, where we could move everything, just an object, a complex object between the pages. As far as I get, please, Damian, correct me if I'm wrong, we can pass only string values between the pages.
So, to be honest, I'm not using routes in Shell. I'm just using old iNavigation interface. And with that, you can, pass any object to the constructor of the page. The reason I'm doing that, I'm not convinced to using routes. It's always seemed to me a little too complicated for the things I wanted to create.
Thanks. As far as I check in the official documentation, I don't find any information that we could use anything instead of strings. And even if we're using a string, we should interpolate that value. I mean, if it has some spaces within the name, it will be encoded with %20, and that we should decode that. And I'm not so happy with that, unfortunately. Or here, for example, Indian elephant will become Indian %20 elephant, and we should unescape data string from a URI. Back button behavior. We could interact it in each page and set our custom icon, enabling, disabling, and some our special text, and also our own command, which is really useful. In the UI, it will be something like that. Icon override and our custom command for back behavior. So search. And it's something that I don't see a reason to be in a shell, but it's interesting option to have integrated in the shell possibility to search from any page you want, but I still think that it's something that probably will be 90% implemented customly because most search is really custom. But for some small, simple to-do apps, it probably might be an option. So let's talk about that. We should define our search handler. We should override on query changed and make some search with item source, which will be shown in the screen. We just should populate it with some data. And here we have a lot of options from where we may take it, but we should remember that it should be in the handler, not in any of your pages. Later, we could also interact when item is selected. So for example, if we select some item, we can go with some path which ending with a query parameter where we're passing that a string item. It can be added from a shell globally or can be added for any shell content itself. Or here we could also add a placeholder and interact if we would like to show a results or we just allowing user to type something and press enter. It's how it may look in iOS and Android. So as I told you earlier, it's good that we have it, but I don't think it's really useful in real world applications. That is just only my opinion. And also what is interesting, we can define our own custom templates within a shell. And it's really good that we shouldn't make it in the code behind. We could just provide one more data template. So it can be everything as we saw it earlier. For example, here we just slightly changing the name to the bold and adding the padding to one more element, image URL. Search box focus, search box handle appearance, two more interesting stuff. I will not stop on them. It's just pretty simple. And if you really need to interact with that, you still probably will go and open Microsoft documentation. What is interesting is that we can set a keyboard for our search handler. Small details, but it's good that we have it. Handler reference, background color, cancel, clear, icon, helper text, and other interesting parameters or commands with which you can interact and modify the default behavior of a shell search according to your app requirements. And one more is that we can integrate with couple other events like on focused, on query change, and on items that I already showed you. Also, we have on query confirmed or with unfocus. For example, for hiding our answers for the users, clearing that shell items value. And it's a time for a demo. And I'll be honest, Shell is really awesome for modifying UI. And it's really hard to show you something impressive. That's why you definitely need to go to check a link in the links. Sorry, give me a moment. Oh, okay. The later should go to check the links where we have couple interesting challenges within where we have implemented a lot different interesting UIs and beautiful UIs. I will show you just a simple, but with a really interesting navigation stack. It's damn simple. It's quite interesting according to the defining elements within a shell. For example, let me just rerun this up. And as you may see, my first page is just a shell content page with defining route, but not define any title or an icon. And also we have a shell flyout behavior for disabled. It will be my login page, as you may guess. I know, is the code has good visibility, or should I increase the font size? I will increase for a little. Oh, it should be better. Okay, so here's my page. We have a flyout behavior disabled. No icons, nothing here. And when we log in, we comes, maybe I should open that page. View modules, login page, model. Here we just have a simple navigation for about page. This about page is defined inside the tab bar. We have our browse and about. Both of them are just shell contents, mean I have only the bottom tabs. If I will define at last one tab with a shell content inside, it will be shown like bottom tabs with top bars inside. For example, here we have one more left. And now we have a couple top bars itself. But if we define only a shell content, we can simplify it without any tab. Let's back it. Okay, as you may see, we don't have any burger menu, any flyout menu for our shell, because we have a tab bar. It's just disabling that. But in the bottom, we have couple flyout items. We have some special roles for them, and if I click show flyout, it will just navigate to the first tab left. And now my previous the tab bar was disappear. I don't have any backward navigation, and I have just my tabs with a flyout in the left. We have here a tab pages. I will get back to it later, and a tabs. Here we have two bottom tabs with couple top tabs, and as you may see, we have the same top tabs for different bottom tabs defined here with just a same title and different rows. Why different? Because it's allowing me to navigating from a different places, not only by absolute URI, but also from a flexible. But it still can refer the same pages. Also, I use here, as I told you, to use a content template, not our pages itself, because it will change our startup. It's just improving a startup for our application, because it will load only on demand first when it comes to that pages. Let's come right now for a pages. Let me open it. We have sorry for that. For example, we have in a views our deep path with a first, second, and a third pages. Also, good to mention that we have only one view model for them, only for first, because there we have a navigation to second page or to third. Other pages should be registered in account behind. Here we have registering rows for a second and a third page. First page are registered inside our app shell. And if we show in the next page, it's the second one. We could go to the third one, and it's a third page. We have a navigation stack. We can back twice. But if we would like to navigate immediately to the last page inside our hierarchy, we can make it, and our back arrow just not get back to our second page, but to the first one, which is awesome. Also, if you're interested about nice flyout customization and different navigation with parameters, you probably better to check a magic gradients, because as I show you in my presentation, we have a Flyout Header template with beautiful magic gradients and two labels. Let me just start it. So, it's hard. Okay. Let's start. Inside, in the Magic Gradients wrapper, we have a plain ground template. We just based on the shell, and we use all of the features except only the search, probably with the navigation. So you could just go and check it. Here we have all in shell content of flyout items. Our shell content just navigates to some pages within it. And what is interesting, here we have an example how we can use an icon not from a PNG, but from font size, because it has much better performance. Then we could set a color, font family, icon font, and glyph. And in the bottom, we could also set the same type of the icons for flyout menu with bottom tabs and couple top tabs. And for example, is our start page is don't have any tabs, just have only one shell content inside it. But if we go to linear gradients, it has three bottom tabs and two top tabs. And what is interesting between the shell navigation, if I switch to repeating top tab and change my bottom tab to second one, it still will be repeating, because it's different pages, but it's still the second one selected. So it's, sorry. No, I told you correctly. Okay, but still remember your selection. Here first, here without any tabs. It's probably all I would like to show you within a demo. Maybe you have some questions. It's a good time. Oh, and I would like to make some, while I'm waiting for questions, some interaction within a page where you could test a lot of interesting different scenarios from the presentation. For example, as I showed you previously, how we can transform our tabs into tabs inside for the left and right, showing in the flyout menu just with one argument, flyout options. Okay, I'm not saving it. Let's log in. Let's navigate the flyout. Okay, we have both of them. And if we come back, we'll have only a tabs. Also, we may add one more cell section inside it and have two more tabs in it. What can else, sir? We can have a tab bar, but I think we don't have a navigation for it. Oh, here, I think I've shown that. Yeah, I've shown if we have some couple shell contents without any top tabs, and if we add tab with a shell content, it will be just a bottom tab with couple of the top tabs. Yes? Let me show it one more time, and I think it will be end of my demo. Damian, is there any questions about the shell?
Actually, I have some questions.
Oh, go on.
Okay, I will wait when the application starts.
Okay, sure. Let me know where I should stop in the app.
Okay, so my first question is about logging out. So now if we log in inside the application, how the code looks like for logging out? Could you show that?
Damn simple. Sure. It was about page, about view model. Log out we have with a triple. And
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I understand. So logging out is simply navigating to login page again.
We have two different options. First of all, let me open up Xamarin. First of them is changing the main page. If we change main page to a login, and inside a login page, when the user logs in, we could change a main page for app shell and all time use the app shell. And when we logged out, just one more time switch a main page, it will be the best option according to me. Here I make a couple tricks. I just disable a flyout so we can open it. It's first on the stack, we can get back, and we can just make a navigation with triple slash. Then we don't have any backstack even in Android in that way.
So, actually changing main page to login page or the shell page, it's not the best idea because in the current project we are using this, and on iOS it's working correctly, but on Android it doesn't. So
really?
yeah, so it's working like this. If we at the beginning set the main page to login page, after user logs in, we set main page to app shell, and when user logs out, we set main page we set again to login page. Then some weird stuff is happening on Android. There are some UI glitches, and we have created workaround for this, make it work, but it cost us some time. there is actually a bug reported on the Xamarin.Forms GitHub. I think in the break I will post it on the chat. So, I was interested how you solve it here, and it
I
thinks
just
like
had
this
a
is...
dirty trick because my solution I tested only in iOS, so I don't know if it will work or not work in Android. I just not expecting that it may even not working. So sorry for proposing bad ideas, but
I
it's
think
one of
it
tricks.
should work actually, because it's still up shell. It's not changing, so I think it should work.
No, with a shell it will work because I testing if I will can navigate back with a back button, and I can't do that. I'm not testing your scenario with a change in main page, but I was starting writing the demo with a change in main page and later think, we have a shell, we have a back button behavior, we have a different routes. Why we should change the stack of a main page? We could just navigate to page without everything on the top, especially when we, where it's that page, when we have that flyout appearance disabled. But flyout behavior, sorry, disabled. And it's one more interesting example that we may have side by side some tab bar and flyouts. But if we show tab bars at the beginning, flyout will not be shown. And if we navigate to any page inside the tab bar, flyout will be hidden one more time.
All right.
So it's interesting trick, and it's really cool to play with that stuff. So you may see I have a lot of commented out code.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I didn't know before that there is option to disable the flyout. So I have a second question. Could you show the example when you go, deeper in the navigation stack? There was a page for that.
Moment. I have here an absolute, not absolute, but that flexible routes. I mean, I don't define anything in a route, just a page, and my pages are defined in the code behind. Also, I don't show in this app that how we may pass parameters, but it's damn simple. That we have item details page. Let me just restart the app. And here we have that passing item ID and showing the details. And what is funny is just comes to me from scratch, because if you create a new app from a shell, it will be out of the box. So it's really funny. It's cool start for just trying something with a shell, just creating from scratch. Here, just set it and load some additional items. As far as I checked, it has some fake in-memory database pre-populated in the first start. Then we could browse. Here's that items. If we're navigating, that navigation goes with item ID. And what is good that ReSharper showing us that usage, but if you will not use a name of that usage of the page will be hidden, and it's a huge minus according to me, because if you wanted to search some deep navigation and from where the inside your app, when it has a lot of screen, you can navigate to that view model or page, it will be hard for you. You could just search everywhere, just filtering the search. Here's one cool option. If you could just use name offs, and we have that usages within a rider. Not sure if Visual Studio for Code will show it, but for Visual Studio for Mac will show it, but Visual Studio for Windows can handle it also.
Okay, so question to current example. So we are in this page, which we are seeing right now. So is this possible to display at this page top bars?
I think yes, but we should pre-populate our query item. But I'm interested in what will be if we don't set it. Let's give it a try. First of all, I will check if we registering a routes. We should do that, but I'm not sure if we have. We have item detail page. Okay. And you want to have it like one more tab. Yes?
Yeah, if you go to detail page for item, so I would like to have like 2 tabs at the top.
Here.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Then we should register it somehow in app shell, because for having that, we should add it visually in the app shell file. Let's try to do that. For example, we're starting from a tab bar, so we are here. We will have, but you don't want to have it here. Oh, it's a problem then. It will be much easier if we would like to go with a flyout items, because there we could have couple pages. And with a couple pages, it will be easy because one more flyout item here will be. Just let's add one more. And with all shell contents named item details and data template for sales model. Models. We need to provide a page, item details page. Okay, item detail page. It should, but it still will be a tab. What's the problem? Then we should wrap it into within a tabs on it. For example, we have a tab, but a top. Now what? It's an interesting problem. During the net speech, I tried to find a solution, because if I define a shell out item, it will be appearing here. We may avoid it if we will not provide some title and icon, but even with that, user may click it by mistake and navigate to the page. It's first minus. Second, if we showing some page within a tab, I think we can do that. We can have 2 more. It will be a top tabs. And if we navigate to first of them, we should come to that tab, that page especially. We will see only 1 tab on the bottom and 2 tabs on the top. But as far as I know, we still will see the tab at the bottom. It's not what you want to handle, yes?
Yeah, I had the same. Yeah, I had the same problem. I didn't find solution for that. I was curious.
Just a custom.
Yeah.
I already see that it should be just a custom. It's so it's not a perfect still, unfortunately. But sorry if no other question, because I just taking not my time. Just ask everyone to make the screenshot. It's a links to everything.
So could you pass the link to the chat?
Sure, I will pass when I stop sharing my screen. And the last standard slide from each my presentation, just check out my Twitter. I'll post there all interesting information, post all my blog posts and news from Magic Gradients. Be free to ask me everything connected with Xamarin, not a Python, not other stuff that someone doing. Please just asking me about Xamarin. So, and let's get in touch. Thanks, Damian, for your interesting question. Yeah, they was
I had spent some time figuring out. I didn't find a solution.
Unfortunately, Shell is still not perfect. And what I would like to finish my presentation with, I don't talk today about using Shell within any framework, such as MVM Cross, Prism, or MVM Lite, because it's a huge part, and about that we could make probably a separate presentation later. because as far as I know, with MVM Cross, unfortunately, we can't use a shell. With Prism, it's slightly possible, and with MVM Lite, I'm not using that, so I don't know. But as far as I heard, we can do that. But shell is something for your own small pet project, for proof of concept, but still not for enterprise application. Please don't use it in enterprise application. Still, it's really, I find that information in one of topic from Date or Now event, so it's official information for you.
Too
But
late.
it's really
we are using it.
and we heard how much pain it may be.
Yeah.
How it's painful. So thank you. Stage is now yours, and I will stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Bogdan. And I think that Shell is very interesting part of the Xamarin Forms. It's very easy to use, and it's providing out of the box most common UI for mobile applications like hamburger menu, top bars, bottom bars. It's great for that. It has some Dropbox, as we spoke about them, but I think it's thing we should use. But it is depending, of course, of your application and on your requirements. But I think it's a good, direction in Xamarin Forms for using a shell. And I think it will be more advanced in the future.
I think it's just worth to learn it at last.
Yeah. So are there any questions to Bogdan? All right, I don't hear any questions. So Bogdan, thank you for interesting presentation and a great discussion about Shell.